Okay, so we are in Genesis 36. The last couple of weeks have been a lot of information. Genesis 34 was an awful story, a warning about compromising your holiness. Genesis 35, I would like to think that it was the repentance of Jacob, that Jacob buried the idols and the foreign influences and the outside influences and was able to obey God and go meet God at Bethel and to move forward in light. I like to think that that the author structured it purposefully, where Genesis 34 was the low point for that family, and all the chickens came home to roost. All the bad choices that had been made came to play in that unfolding situation, and it was horrible. And Jacob said, "You know what? I need to turn to God. Let's bury the idols. Let's move forward in the direction that God is leading us." And so then we come to a major transition in the book of Genesis. As we go into chapter 37, we start the Joseph narratives, that phase. And as often has happened in Genesis, as we transition from one phase, a narrative about one main character to a different one, there are genealogies given to kind of tie things together. As we've said before many times, the genealogies are very important. We don't like them. I, this may be one of the less interesting. I shouldn't say that at the beginning because that sets the tone, but this may be one of the less interesting Bible studies that we've had recently because there's not a lot of action. This is a list of people. Now, when these lists were put down, they were very important to people in establishing relationships. And these genealogies are the purpose of the book of Genesis, to make connections for people. Most likely, tradition would tell us that the book of Genesis was put together, the original form of it was put together by Moses as the children of Israel wandered in the wilderness. They had been slaves for over 400 years, and in that time they had forgotten the dignity that is required in order to be respectful to God, to make God holy. When you have no dignity, no sense of self, it is very hard to worship and put something above you, as odd as that sounds. And so I really believe this book was given to tell the Israelites, this is who you are. If we track the genealogy back all the way, we go to Adam, and from Adam, the next thing is God. We are related to God. We are God's children, and here's a pathway. That's who you are, Israelites. You are wandering now, lost, feeling lost. Follow God. Obey God. That is your identity. That is who you are. These other genealogies are important for lots of different reasons, but one reason is to help them know the people around them. As we go through this genealogy of Esau, we see people that live on the other side of the Dead Sea, the Edomites, and where did they come from, and what's going on with them. So Genesis is concerned with tracing Israel's ancestral line. As I said, all the way back to Adam, and in their neighbor Edom, this is the country, Edom. Edom means red, and that was the nickname for Esau, was red. A lot of the pictures you see, he has red hair. They saw their nearest relative. These are our cousins. Indeed, Israel's twin brother Esau. So the descendants of the twin brother of Israel. So this is their closest relatives. They're also related to the Moabites, go back to Lot, and the Ammonites, Lot's two daughters. They're also related to the Canaanites, and as we've said before, the Hebrew language is merely a dialect of the Canaanite language. And so all these people are related, all these Semites are related, and these stories help them understand their relationship, but also by telling this ancestor turned away from God, helps them understand how the people and the descendants that live around them are turning away from God. These people do not worship God, and it gives them an explanation of their world, kind of how the world works. As is customary with the subordinate non-elect line in Genesis. They said the non-elect line. I call it the line of the seed bearers, the blessing of promise. We're using a lot of different names, but they're talking about the same thing. Genesis 3:15 all the way to the cross. That's the line they're talking about. As is customary with the subordinate non-elect line in Genesis, Esau's family history is given before Jacob's. Joseph is a descendant of the favored son of Jacob, and that's where we're going next. So before we do that, they make one short genealogy of Esau, his brother. And it is much more brief. Why do we care about the genealogy of Esau? And I say that knowing that maybe I'm presuming that you care in that. Maybe you do not care. One, it is important enough to be in the Bible. And so, there's a lot of stuff in the Bible that I, Rex, do not know perfectly well why it is in there. But I have faith that God knows why stuff is in there. And so I make it a goal to understand stuff in there because I believe that God knows more than me. And that's been a change. There was probably a time in my youth that I suspected maybe that I was closer or equal to God in what I knew. That's a joke. That's facetious. I did not, but you would think that. But it's important enough to be in the Bible. It's important to the Old Testament people. So when this was written down, and even before that, when it was chanted by a priest, by we might say a rabbi. The rabbis were way later. Rabbi is an Aramaic word. When it was chanted to the people, those people, the audience back then, knew who these people were. Every name rang a bell to them. We might say people from Virginia, people from Ohio, and all of y'all have a context and understand sort of what I'm talking about. Now, in 500 years, a recording of our conversation, this internet recording that we're listening to might make its way somewhere around the world, and those terms would be meaningless to those people. But to us, when I say Virginia and Ohio, that gives you some context. Well, that was the same thing true. These were important names to the people when it was originally told. And so one of the things that one of the ways to understand the Bible is God's inspired word. He inspired it to human beings. Those human beings spoke in language and of people that they were aware of and knew. So our goal is to get back to that original human author who wrote down or first spoke the words of the Bible, and to understand first what they're talking about, who they're talking to, and what subject they're talking on. And then, we may not have a situation exactly like that in modern times, but we take the essential truth, because above and around everything that the Bible says, the Bible is talking about God and His way for mankind. We can capture that. The more we understand about the ancient context that they're talking about, we can grab that essential truth and we can pull it forward into our own time and benefit greatly from it. Now, there's some things that are in the Bible that we don't even have to pull forward. They're just stuff we know. But then the other stuff is more obscure. And I would say Genesis 36 is a little bit more obscure for us and distant for us as modern people. There is lots of info in here, and I will try to point that out as we go through. I'm going to try to tell you what the names mean and indicate. I'm going to try to tell you when a people are referenced somewhere else in the Bible. I'm going to try to pull that reference for you. But again, those ancient people, as these names were told, they were going, oh, okay, so that's who that is. I got it now. I'm getting it. I see. Even in the Old Testament, God is the God of all people, not just Israelites. The focus of the camera. There's a camera taking videos, we would say, in the Bible. That's what we see are the videos that are taken by that camera. That camera is focused on Israel. It's not set up all around the world looking at God interacting with all people. But we are told repeatedly that God is focusing on everybody. But the Bible, the Old Testament, is his work in the Hebrew people that is going to lead to the birth of a baby and the cross. And so the camera is focused on the Israelites, but God of all people. So, in light of that, do we see any focus outside of the Israelites in the Old Testament? Well, it starts, Genesis 1 through 11 has nothing to do with the Israelites specifically. They're no part of it. Adam and Eve belongs to you and I just as much as they belong to the Jews. Primeval history came before there were any Jews. So that's about the world. So the Bible starts and talks about the whole world and everybody. Okay? Then when we do begin narrowing the focus of the camera of the Bible, of the universal truth, the universal ministry of God on planet Earth, when it begins to focus on the Israelites and Abraham, what's the first thing in Genesis 12:3 that is said? It said, Abraham, I'm working with you. I'm going to bless you. And I'm going to protect you because you have a special mission. So I will bless those who help you, and I will curse those who mess with you. I'm going to get them because I'm not going to let the seed be taken away. Now, what is interesting is one of the people that mess with the seed the most is Abraham himself. Nevertheless, God keeps him from making a fatal mistake. He gives Sarai into a harem in Pharaoh. He gives her again to Abimelech. God protects him from himself. But then at the end of that verse 3 of Genesis 12, the birth of the Hebrew people, what does he say? And in you, in your seed, I'm going to bless all people. So always the purpose of the Israelites was to spread the word, the reconnection to all people. So there's always a world focus, all people focus. Ishmael. Was Ishmael the promised son, the son of promise? No. Ishmael was the product of a sinful choice. Did God abandon Ishmael? No, he didn't. And I'll show you in a minute. We have a genealogy, and that genealogy of Ishmael being the other brother, the older other brother, is parallel to what we're going to see today with Esau, the genealogy of Esau. Esau's is longer and more developed. Then we have Esau and Jacob, and that's what we're talking about in 36, the genealogy of Esau, before we continue Jacob's line through Joseph. So there is from 25, we had left Ishmael had been gone out of the scene for a couple chapters, and then we got Ishmael's descendants. This is the family of Ishmael, son of Abraham, through Hagar, Sarah's Egyptian servant. Here's the list, and it goes through a lot of people and the tribes named after them. Verse 17, Ishmael lived 137 years. Then he breathed his last and joined his ancestors in death. Ishmael's descendants have occupied the region of Havilah to Shur. So Egypt is down in the south, sort of southwest from the land. Havilah to Shur is somewhere kind of northeast, going back up towards Israel of Egypt. We don't know exactly where it is. But if you remember, when Hagar fled, she fled and they found her, she was found in Shur. So she was headed back to Egypt, which is east of Egypt in the direction of Asher. So Asher is northeast of the land. And so we're not exactly sure where exactly, but the same description for Havilah and Shur could actually be given for Israel too, for the land of Israel. It is east of Egypt in the direction of Asher too, so somewhere in there. There they lived in open hostility towards all their relatives. They were difficult to get along with people, these descendants of Ishmael. So that is our precedent for what we're going to see today. So we pick up in verse 1. Now this is the genealogy of Esau. Who is Edom? Who is the one called Red, nicknamed Red? Esau took wives from the daughters of Canaan. If you remember, that was a big thing with Rebekah and Isaac. Rebekah was just tore to pieces by it, frustrated by it. Ada, the daughter of Elon. Elon means oak, the Hittite. Now, Hittites are up in what is modern Turkey. So she was a foreign girl. Aholibama, the daughter of Anna, which is a Turkish name also. So these two girls were more in what we would call Turkey today. The daughter of Zibeon. Zibeon means hyena, the Hivite. We're not exactly sure we know what the Hittites are. We're not exactly sure who the Hivites are. Some people believe that the Hivites and the Horites are the same people. Some people identify them with what history would call the Hurrians. But that is tenuous. There's a lot of speculation about that and not a lot of fact. And then the other wife was Basemath, Ishmael's daughter, the sister of Ishmael's son, Nebajoth. Now Ada bore Eliphaz. That name Eliphaz is the god El conquers. It could be El is paz, or God is strong. Those are different possibilities for what that name is. Now, you may remember when they use the word El for God, that is giving you a Canaanite flavor. El was a god in the pantheon he was the king of the gods in the Canaanites. It gets a little bit confusing because, as I said, Hebrew is a dialect of Hebrew. And so you're never sure if the Hebrews are using El just as a general word for God, or if that has a Canaanite flavor to it. Most likely in this case, because Esau married two Canaanite women, some Canaanites, and he married Ishmael's daughter. I would speculate that most of these El names are Canaanite deities. Often you can tell who people worship by their names. A lot of names in the Hebrew names end in Yah. Isaiah, Jeremiah, Yah. Those are contractions of the name Yahweh. So Yahweh is in their name. So their parents were worshipers of Yahweh. Saul had a son, Ishbaal. Ishbaal. Have you ever seen Ishbaal in the Bible? No, because they would not write that name. They thought it was shameful for Saul to have a son with the Baal in it. Baal is the foreign deity. He was a Canaanite deity, a storm god in the Canaanites. They thought it was shameful that he would name his son Ishbaal, and it was, rather than Ishyah, man of Yahweh. And so they went in, and what you will see in your Bible is Ishbosheth. Have you ever seen that name, Ishbosheth? Bosheth is shame on you. So his name is Ish, shame on you, because the Hebrew authors would not put Baal in there in the Hebrew. I've always got a kick out of that. So that is Eliphaz to Esau. Ada bore Eliphaz to Esau, and Basemath bore Ruel, which means friend of El, and Aholibama bore Yeush, may God help me. Jalem, which is either youth or mountain goat for his name. and Korah, which meant bald-headed. These were the sons of Esau who were born to him in the land of Canaan before he moved. This is while Jacob was in Padan Aram. This was the family. So these children were grown men by the time that Uncle Jacob came back. Esau took his wives, his sons and daughters, and all the persons of his household, his cattle and all the animals, all his goods, which he had gained in the land of Canaan, and he went to a country away from the presence of his brother Jacob when Jacob came. He had a large family, and he just transplanted them from the land of Canaan, went to the other side of the Dead Sea and down to the southeast below the Dead Sea to Mount Seir. Verse 7, for their possessions were too great for them to dwell together in the land, and where they were strangers and could not support them because of the livestock. So Esau dwelt in Mount Seir. Esau is Edom. Another thing that is going on in chapter 36, as the Bible has been put together, most likely we're seeing two different sources that are coming together. What do I mean by that? Well, most likely when this was put together, I would assume by Moses, but it doesn't really say. Nowhere do we have a signed document that Moses wrote it. We know that he wrote parts of Genesis because Jesus said he did. But whomever put this together, and I presume Moses, that's our tradition, it doesn't say it in the Bible. What he was doing is he was collecting stories from the Israelite people about their ancestors. This is many hundreds of years. Moses came along many hundreds of years after Esau lived. Most likely it wasn't written down anywhere, though it could have been. Most likely Moses was one of the first ones to be Israelites to be able to write, maybe the first. And I believe that God called Moses because he could write stuff down. Moses was trained in the Egyptian universities. At that time in the ancient world, the Egyptians were the highest educated people for writing stuff down. And so God picked Moses because where did Moses go to school? At Pharaoh's school, didn't he? He sat beside Pharaoh in school. He got the absolute best writing education in the world. Nobody anywhere was higher trained than Moses. And so what he did, I think, this is my theory, because the Bible doesn't go into detail about this. We have to speculate a little bit. Moses sat in a tent for 40 years. And he collected these stories. Why did he do it? Well, because as we've already said, the Israelites didn't know who they were. They said, crack the whip and we'll make bricks. That's all we know. 400 years. He said, you know what? We need more than that. He'd wring his hands. He said, we need more than crack the whip and I'll make bricks if we're going to worship a living God. If we're going to make choices for ourselves. If we're going to choose to be holy and not sin because God is holy in our heart, we have to get beyond crack the whip and I'll make bricks. So he began collecting these stories. And you think of stories as patches that go into a quilt. Now you look at any one of the quilt pattern patches and it doesn't say much or do much. It might. Some are really pretty, but some just look like a piece of cloth. It's only when you put them together and then through writing and so forth, sew them together, and then you step back and you look at the whole quilt that is the book of Genesis, and all of a sudden you see a beautiful pattern emerge. A picture comes clear. And that picture is who God is and who we are as Israelites. And so, most likely, as we look at this chapter 36, again, the further we go back in history, the more dim we can see things for sure. But based on the internal clues and stuff being said in a little bit different ways, and we'll see here in a little bit, names are repeated a lot. Most likely, he has taken two patches and sewing them together into this story in this chapter. So Esau is Edom. Does that make sense to everybody? this separation of Esau and Jacob because there was not land, is that the first time we've heard anything like that in Genesis? No, I just put the reference up there, Abraham and Lot in Genesis 13:6. Now the land was not able to support them, both Lot's herds and Abram's herds, that they might dwell together, for their possessions were so great that they could not dwell together. What happened with Abraham and Lot? Well, God had called Abraham, and so Lot decided he wanted to move somewhere else. There was nothing holding him to the land. Lot wasn't seeking that place where he could dwell together with God and walk with God. He said, Sodom and Gomorrah throws really good parties. I think I'm going to go over and live near that so I have access to that. I want to live near a city. I don't want to live out in the country. And so he split. Esau traveled east. Have we heard anybody else travel east? Yeah. When Adam and Eve were kicked out of the garden, they went east. When Cain murdered Abel, he went east. So this again is one of those just little nuances in the story. What does it mean to travel east? Well, it seems apparent because they made the tabernacle to face east. The sun comes up in the east. That is God smiling on us in the morning when the sun comes up. And if you're facing east, you see the sun come up. And if you travel west, you are trying to stay in front of God, before God. You're living your life transparently. If you travel east, you're trying to sneak out of God's sight. You're trying to do things your way. And so that's just a little hint. The heirs of the promise, the seed bearers, they stayed in the land. They stayed in fellowship with God. That's the whole program with the Hebrews. God is sanctifying, making holy the seed bearers. John?
When Christ returns, doesn't it say he splits the eastern sky?
I think it does. I would have to look about that and see if I think that there is an Old Testament kind of reference there.
I'm pretty sure it says he splits the eastern sky. The Catholic cemetery in Fort Wayne, all the people are buried facing east.
Okay, so that's that reaching back and grabbing a biblical idea. I don't know that is done in order for us to, something that we need to obey necessarily, but it is a clue as we kind of unpack the hints about them. Lots of hints about it. Esau seems like he's a pretty good guy, but he's hungry a lot, and he likes to marry naughty women, and there's little clues throughout that he's being led by his stomach. His first thing is not to be led by his heart and to follow God, but he's taking care of his own needs first. Verses 9 through 14 are structured like other major clan moves, like the one in Genesis 12:5, where Abraham moved away from Terah. In 13:5 and 6, we talked about that, Abraham and Lot. In 31:18, when Jacob moved away, migrated the whole clan away from Laban. And so we're seeing this movement of peoples. So the Horites in the mountains of Seir, now according to Deuteronomy 2:12 and verse 22, the Horites lived in Seir. Can you see there below the Dead Sea where Mount Seir is? So that they moved from the land about where it says Jerusalem, and maybe in that area, maybe a little bit farther south where the word Dead Sea is, probably in that region is where the land, they would call the land. I know Isaac tended to live down in the southern region there. And so Esau migrated down to the valley. There is a big rift valley that goes up and goes from the Gulf of Aqaba. See where it says Red Sea down at the bottom? That's the Gulf of Aqaba. That is a rift valley. The tectonic plates are separating there. And it's a certain amount, like a couple centimeters a year. That valley is getting bigger year after year. And it formed the Dead Sea there, which is one of the lowest places elevation-wise on earth. And then the River Jordan is in that Rift Valley, and it's going to get wider and wider for however long the earth is. But Esau moved from that hill country up against the Rift Valley over what we would say is the left side of that ridge there. He moved into that Rift Valley, into the low-lying lands there. He lived in Seir, which is a mountainous region east of Arabah, between the Dead Sea and the Gulf of Aqaba, before the Edomites settled there. And so that's what we're told in Deuteronomy, the book of Deuteronomy, as they travel through that region. So most likely Esau and the Edomites drove out the Horites out of that region, transplanted there. We go on to verse 9. This is the genealogy. In Hebrew it says the Toledot, the genealogy history. The Toledot of Esau, father of the Edomites in Mount Seir. These were the names of Esau's son. You see, repeated. Most likely, this is Moses putting together two separate stories, putting them together in one. Eliphaz, the son of Ada, the wife of Esau, ruled, the son of Basemath, wife of Esau. Sons of Eliphaz were Teman. In that southern region around Mount Seir is where Teman is. There's a region there called Teman, and the people that lived there were Temanites. So that's another thing about these names. We're not 100% sure in all cases if the names are the name of a person or if it's the name of a group of people that lived there, who that person was their ancestor. So Teman lived there, his descendants were the Temanites. And so they may not be, when this was first told, they may not be familiar with Teman, but they may know about the Temanites. Omar, Zepho, Gatam, Kenaz. Now Timnah was the concubine of Eliphaz, so she was not a full wife, Esau's son, and she bore Amalek to Eliphaz. Amalek, by the time of Moses, is the arch enemy of the Israelites. And it's very possible that the author is trying to tell us why is the Amalekites so bad? Well, they're illegitimate. They're from their ancestor Amalek, they're illegitimate people. These were the sons of Ada, Esau's wife. These were the sons of Reuel. Nahath, which means pure or resting. Zerah, God has shown, God has demonstrated. Shema is God has heard. And Mizah. These were the sons of Basemath, Esau's wife. These were the sons of Aholibamah, Esau's wife, the daughter of Anna, the daughter of Zibeon. And she bore to Esau Jeush, Jalam, and Korah. Then it talks about the chiefs. This is a very rare term, only used here in the Hebrew. So this term may be an Edomite term. They call their leaders this. The sons of Eliphaz, firstborn son of Esau, were Teman, Omar, Zepho, Kenaz. Again, repetitive. Korah, Gaham, and Amalek. These were the chiefs of Eliphaz in the land of Eden. They were the sons of Ada. These were the sons of Reuel, and it goes back through calling them chiefs. These were the chiefs of Reuel in the land of Edom. These were the sons of Basemath, Esau's wife. These were the sons of Aholibamah, and it goes through names that we have already seen and assigns them to Aholibamah, the daughter of Anah. These were the sons of Esau. The sons of Seir. These were the sons of Seir, the Horites. Now, again, we've already been told that the Edomites displaced the Horites. They went in and they just took their land. And the Horites that stayed were killed. We think maybe the word Horite means cave dwellers. Maybe these people lived in the cliffs and things, who inhabited the land. Lotan, they there's speculation that could be related to the name Lot. Maybe the name Lot was originally Lotan. We're not sure. Shobal, Zebulun, Anah, Dishon, which means an ibex. That's a kind of a gazelle, antelope creature. Ezer, Dishan. These were the chiefs of the Horites, the sons of Seir, who lived there before and were displaced. The sons of Lotan and Hori were Heman. Lotan's sister was Timnah. There was a town, an ancient town called Timnah. These were the sons of Shobal, Alvin, Manahath, which means resting place, Ebal, which is the name of the mountain where Shechem is, and there's speculation if that is connected to Mount Ebal. Shepho, which means bald, and Onam, which means vigorous. When we have a translation like this, that means the name was similar to Hebrew or was a Hebrew name. When we don't have a translation, it is an obscure name. It is a local dialect that we don't have the writings for, and so we can't really translate what they are anymore. These were the sons of Zebulun, both Ajah, which means unclean bird of prey, and Anna. This was the Anna who found water in the wilderness as he pastured donkeys of his father Zebulun. There's another Anna we're going to see in a minute, so that's wanting to differentiate the two Annas. These were the children: Dishon, Aholibamah, the daughter of Anah. These were the sons of Dishon: Hemdan, Eshban, and Ithran. Ithran means a remainder. And Cheran, which probably means vineyard. These were the sons of Ezer: Bilhan, Zavan, and Achan. These were the sons of Dishan, Uz, and Aaron, which means gazelle. So again, I know we're kind of glazing over, but these are important connections. And again, familiar probably with the original hearers. And they're going, okay, I got that. These were the chiefs of the Horites. It goes through the list that we've already seen. So again, this very well could be from a different list where it gave the same names using a local term for a leader, the sons of Esau. The kings of Edom. Now these are the kings who reigned in the land of Edom before any king reigned over the children of Israel. Where were the Israelites while these Edomite kings were ruling, reigning? Any thought about that? They were in Egypt. Yeah. And so Jacob goes down to Egypt because of a famine. And so for the 400 years that the Israelites were down in Egypt, these were the kings that were ruling in Edom as that people developed. And we'll see in a little bit, as the Israelites come out of Egypt, they want to cut through Edom. They said, where were your cousins? Remember us? What do you think Edom said? Nope. We remember you. You come through here, we're going to fight. In Numbers 20, a cross-reference to this, while Moses was at Kadesh, he sent this message to the king of Edom. So they were wanting to cut through. This is what your relatives, the people of Israel, say. You know all the hardships that we've been through these last 400 years. Our ancestors went down to Egypt. We lived there a long time. And we and our ancestors were brutally mistreated by the Egyptians. But when we cried out to Yahweh, he heard us and sent an angel who brought us out of Egypt. Now we're camped at Kadesh, on the border of your land. Please let us travel through your land. We will be careful not to go through your fields and vineyards. We won't even drink water from your wells. We will stay on the king's road and never leave it until we have passed through your territory. But the king of Edom said, stay out of my land, or I'll meet you with an army. Okay? That's a very important story. One reason that they're going to great lengths to tell us about Esau and the Edomites is this is a clear memory in the minds of later Israelites, the ones that came back into the land after Egyptian captivity, is the treatment by the Edomites. And this is helping us understand who these people are, and that as a descendant of Esau, Esau never was interested in God too. And the way the daddy acts, often that is how the children are going to act. Verse 32, Bela the son of Beor, Beor, the son of Beor, Balaam is also called the son of Beor in Numbers. Bela, the son of Beor, reigned in Edom. The name of his city was Dinhaba. And when Bela died, Jobab, the son of Zerah, and Bozrah reigned in his place. So there is Bozrah, is generally identified with what is modern day Busera. And you see, let's see, Busera down there, it says Edom, and there is Busera. So Dead Sea, and then down in that same area where Mount Seir is. You see it there. When Jobab died, Husham, which means broad-nosed, of the land of the Temanites, reigned in his place. When Husham died, Hadad, the son of Bedad, who attacked Midian in the field of Moab, reigned in his place. The name of this city was Avith. Hadad is the name of a Semitic storm god. All these people in this area are Semites. And so one of the storm gods are called Hadad. Later, Hadad will be an arch enemy of Solomon when we get over to that point. Hadad means helper. That phrase, who defeated Midian in the area of Moab, some have speculated that maybe that was talking about Gideon's defeat of the Midianites in Judges 7, but there's not, other than speculation, there's no solid link. Most likely, in a minute, there's another Hadad, and so this little anecdote about in the field of Moab is put in there to separate Hadads, so you don't get the two Hadads confused. Again, it's a little bit lost on us. When Hadad died, Samlah, which means protection, of Masrekah, and that we think Masrekah is fine growing area, reigned in his place. And when Samlah died, Sha'al, that means the Sha'al is to ask, and so that is requested. When Saul was made king, his name was the one you asked for. So it's a little bit of a funny, to me, name. And Rehoboth by the river reigned in his place. When Saul died, Baal, which is a Canaanite god, Baal-Hanan, so his name means Baal is gracious, the son of Akbor, which means mouse, reigned in his place. And when Baal-Hanan, the son of Akbor, died, Hadar reigned in his place, and the name of the city was Pau. Most likely, this Pau is Wadi Fai on the south bank of the Dead Sea. So a wadi is a big wash. We would call it a wash that's filled with sand. So the dirt in the wadi is very soft because when it floods, it washes out and leaves that dirt there. So his wife's name was Mehetabel, which means El does good, and the daughter of Matred, the daughter of Mezahab, which means waters of gold. And the chiefs of Esau, in verse 40, these were the names of the chiefs of Esau, according to the family places, by their names: Chief Timnah, Alva, Jetheth, Aholabama, Elah, and Pinion. Now, again, these could also be, that word chief could be a designation of a place. It could be an office. It could be what they call their chiefs. It could also be a place. We know Pinion is probably Punyon, which from Numbers 32, they journeyed from Zalmona and camped at Punyon. Punyon, we believe, is modern day Fainan. And that, again, that's another wadi there, Wadi Fainan. You can go visit that today, 20 miles south of the Dead Sea. And again, a place they went by in the Exodus. So you see there Wadi Fainan. You also see Timnah. Now, this particular map is a map for minerals in the area. And both places are places where they have mineral mines. Wadi Fainan, and you see right there is the Dead Sea. So in that same general area, we think where those places are. Chief Kenaz, Chief Teman, Timnah, Mizbar, which means fortress. There's speculation that that could be Petra. The fortress of Petra, where there was a big city there. It was like a resort city out in the middle of the desert. They were able to get water, to trap water when it would rain, and they had like these resort pools that people would go to out in the middle of the desert in Petra. They think maybe that's what Mizbar was. Magdiel, which means fruit or gift of ale. Chief Eram. These were the chiefs of Edom, according to the dwelling places in the land of their possession. Esau was the father of the Edomites.